Well, we are in early July, so well into summer, but there are still some, I would call them signs of spring still hanging around. And here's an example, or a couple of examples. This is a big tooth aspen, and there's a white ash back there with what I call spring color. A lot of tree and shrub leaves, when they first come out in spring in a cool place like Door County where spring hangs on much longer, it takes the chlorophyll on some leaves longer to develop because chlorophyll is the green pigment, and that is the least stable in cold temperatures. So we get some other pigments that can show up, especially on the new growth. This is big tooth aspen with, not as brightly colored as it will be in fall, but still subtle, very nice. And here we have white ash with some of the newer growth with that purple color. Lots of trees and shrubs do that. Sugar maple is famous for having that nice red in the new leaves sometimes. So there's always something beautiful to look at if you look closely enough. And this spring color on tree and shrub leaves on that new growth is an example. Here's more of that spring color. This is on ironwood, which is really good at spring color, and if we were further toward Green Bay and further west, you probably wouldn't see this anymore. But we stay cool for so long in Door County that this spring color on trees and shrubs, those that develop it, just last much longer. And here it is, second week of July almost, and we still have some of it on that new growth on ironwood in this case. Here is poison ivy, which actually isn't an ivy at all. It's actually related to sumac, but that's beside the point. But we're along the entrance road just before we get to the Homestead Meadow, and there's a fair bit of it growing right along the road here. People say leaves of three, let it be. Actually, this whole thing right here, this collection of what looks like three leaves, is actually one true leaf. It's a botanical designation, but these are leaflets, not leaves, but that's, again, beside the point. A lot of plants have or can be confused with poison ivy, so people kind of get afraid to go anywhere off trail because they might get poison ivy, because there are some plants that look a little bit like it. I've always said the best way to identify poison ivy is to get it once, like I did back when I was in my 30s. I probably rolled around it as a kid 1,000 times, but eventually you develop a sensitivity to it. So anybody's around it enough and hasn't gotten it will eventually probably get it. And once you get it, then you learn to identify it pretty quickly. But I've always told people, if it didn't do what it does to our skin, we grow it as a ground cover. It's a nice looking plant, turns red in the fall, stays low, at least stays low here. Further south in the country, it climbs up into trees, but just all on the ground in Wisconsin. But again, leaflets of three or leaves of three, glossy. Well, they lose their glossiness as summer goes on. But it's one, if you're going to spend a lot of time outside or much time outside, it's one that it's good to learn. Poison ivy. We're at the tail end of one of the best times of the year to be at the clearing. That's when the lance leaf coreopsis are in full bloom in the Homestead Meadow and out in the hay meadow as well. So we're at the very end of its bloom season. Got these beautiful, kind of buttercup yellow flowers. Looks like a daisy. It's in the same family as daisies. It's in the aster family. Called lance leaf coreopsis because the leaves are narrow and lance-shaped, low to the ground. So it's just about done blooming, a great pollinator plant. But what's taken its place now, not in the numbers, but same color, is black-eyed Susan. That comes a little later, like into midsummer, and that they'll bloom off and on almost to fall, even into fall sometimes, with that big brown center. On all aster family flowers, Coreopsis, black-eyed Susan, the true asters, we think of these outer yellow, in this case yellow petals, as as flower parts. Each one is actually an individual flower. They're sterile on the outside, but they're individual flowers called ray flowers. And then in the middle, we have dozens of, again, we think of this whole thing as one flower, but it's a collection of all these ray flowers. And in the middle, those much smaller are called disc flowers. They're fertile. And if you look closely, you'll see a lot of little yellow stamens where the pollen is. All those individual little pieces will produce one seed. So this is actually a collection of dozens of flowers, ray flowers and disc flowers, but it looks like it's just a single flower. So Coreopsis, black-eyed Susan. A little later in summer, we'll start getting a fair bit of goldenrod in here too. So I've often called this one of the clearing's yellow meadows. There's always something yellow in bloom during summer. Coreopsis first, then black-eyed Susan, and then the various goldenrods. We're at the north end of the Homestead Meadow on the east side of the road. And this is another plant in the aster family. This is ox-eye daisy with that row of ray flowers and then the disc flowers in the middle. This is actually not a native like Lanceleaf Coreopsis and black-eyed Susan is. This is a non-native or an exotic plant. Some people would list it as an invasive. I don't consider it invasive at the clearing. It's out in meadow areas that are managed anyway, and they're disturbed, mowed. So it's not going to march into the woods because it won't tolerate that much shade. You might see it along some shorelines. You probably do see it along shorelines in Door County, so maybe it's considered an invasive plant there. But I've never seen it to the point where it's eliminating a lot of other stuff. It's just here and there. In my gardens at home, in certain places, I'll pull it as a weed. But at a place like the clearing, it's kind of like dandelion. It's everywhere in sunny areas, not thick as a solid patch, just here and there. People, of course, love it. And we all grew up with it, picking off the petals to see if she loves you or not. Anyway, ox-eye daisy. I do a nature walk before breakfast every Thursday morning at the clearing. And I always stop here to look at this and talk about this maidenhair fern growing right next to the road on this little hump of, I call this a gravel shove from snow plowing. So this soil where this is growing is probably more gravel than actual soil. And this patch of maidenhair fern taught me a lot about maidenhair fern. It looks like it's delicate, would be hard to grow. I assumed that for years that it would be difficult to grow. It's tough as nails. It's shorter here than it is in my garden. It's maybe twice this height, a couple of them. So it's stunted, but this has been here. I came in 1999, it was here then. So this has been here for going on 30 years at least, growing in this, what I would consider, not ideal soil. If it just grew a little bit further in, it would be in better soil. But I think maybe it gets better light here. The plants right along the road get a little more sunlight because of the opening, more opening in the canopy. Anyway, for some reason, this patch of maidenhair fern is very happy here. And again, a lot tougher than it looks like it would be. And I always tell people that it's the second most natural element of the clearing that's drawn, painted, photographed. Not this patch necessarily, because there are other ones here, but the 3 pines at the bottom of the lodge meadow are, of course, the most popular for artists and photographers. I think maidenhair fern may be second on that list. People just are attracted to it artistically, maidenhair fern.